Los Angeles Virgen. Chapter 8. The Vampire and the Wendigo. I had always known about the Wendigo, my ability to read minds and see memories when I drank blood from unsuspecting people revealed its presence to me way before I met Ayana. The images I received from the local natives of the new land were monstrous. I had just crossed from the land once called Dasha to the new lands with my small coven of blood drinkers. These vampires were the entourage my father insisted on me leading, even though I resented their presence. As the prince, I was never allowed to be alone. The year was 1549. Humans were leaving the old world for the new in hordes.
Humans are idiots,
Father said before he sent me off.
There is nothing new about those lands.
There isn't, I asked. Why was he sending me? Then,
it is a land of rogue skin shifters, of rogue vampires and other monsters. It's not like home, but I'm sending you, my son, on a hunt unlike any you have ever experienced. You let me know if you ever come across bat shifters.
His voice trailed off.
I want to add them to my collection.
He answered. Why must I go, Father? Why not go yourself, I asked. I was a scientist. I had my studies and my lab to look and care for. I had no interest in monster hunting. He simply sneered and became haughty as usual when his orders were defied. His fangs elongated and his eyes grew a bright, glowing red.
Because I am sending you,
he huffed. He was a typical king of his time, one that just lashed out orders, daring anyone to defy them, especially his only son. I arrived on the new lands ready to capture the creatures my father told me about so I could quickly return to my lab. The ship we sailed on was French and followed Cartier's expedition towards the lands now known as the Canadian provinces. Our ship did not make it to Canada, though. Instead, my crew cut the trip further south and landed in what is now called New York. We were quickly running out of provisions, i.e. humans, and needed to seek out sustenance. It saddens me now to say that the local natives present there were the first ones we fed on when landing in the new country. There weren't many Europeans on this side of the map yet, and we were starving. These people were unlike any people I had ever known. They were spiritual, rich in a type of power unknown to me. This is when we learned about a new creature none of us had ever heard of. Visions of the Wendigo's appearance as a grotesque perversion of nature flashed before my eyes as I drank. Fear and screams erupted in my mind as visions of this large undead-like creature consumed the flesh of living people. I had heard stories about these creatures back home, but never witnessed one personally or within visions. It piqued my curiosity, and I set off in search of the crazed creature who appeared as half deer and half man. Its hooves, which should be sturdy and strong, were deformed and half decomposed, adding a grotesque clumsiness to its gait. The flesh that once covered its bones had rotted away, leaving a ghastly sight of exposed bone and decaying sinew. This decay did not end at its limbs. The entirety of the Wendigo's body was a testament to its suffering and unnatural existence. But the creature's face was perhaps the most haunting aspect of its visage. It was nothing but a deer skull, no flesh, no signs of life. It was a type of vampire in its own right. Hollow and gaunt, it is a visage of eternal hunger and despair. Its eyes, or rather the empty sockets where eyes once might have been, were sunken deeply into its skull. Within these dark voids, a faint red hue hummed, a sinister glow that spoke of a malevolent force manifesting a consciousness inside the cursed body. This dim light served as a beacon of dread, a warning of the malevolent presence lurking within the creature. I didn't even want to kill it initially. I wanted to study it. I wanted to take it back home with me and dissect it like a lab rat. I wanted to hook it up to electricity and see its reflexes come to life. Just how exactly did this monster function, I thought to myself. I had to know. I caught its disgusting scent and raced the night in search of the creature. We traveled on foot further north, using the speed and agility our vampire bodies gave us. We were on its heels and caught up to his scent near a small village across the Great Lakes. We had arrived too late. It had already reared its ugly head in a fishing village and was taking out the last of a werewolf pack that lived there. This land I speak of is called Canada. I, with my royal entourage of fellow vampires, were about to spring into motion to capture the Wendigo, but it had vanished into thin air upon seeing our squad.
"This isn't the bat shifter your father wanted,"
inquired Julian, looking disappointed. "No," I answered. "But my father is a monster collector. I am sure he would want it for his collection," I answered.
So many strong wolves here,
answered Clive.
Let's have a snack.
"There aren't any left,"
answered Julian.
There's one. I smell her,
returned Clive, a master tracker, looking far off into the distance. Suddenly, the night was pierced by the sickening sound of bones snapping and flesh tearing. My senses homed in on the direction of the disturbance, and that's when I first saw her, Ayana. She moved like a shadow, her scent masked so thoroughly that even I, with my heightened senses, could not detect her. Her kind was not unknown to me. We also had werewolves in Romania, but she was different somehow. Feral and yet graceful at the same time. She was strong in spirit, unlike the wolves enslaved by vampires in Romania. It would be a lie to say I hadn't instantly fallen in love with her the moment I saw her. Even if it was just her wolf that I saw first. "Stop," I protested just as the coven of vampires were about to descend on her. "You will do no such thing. I need her for my studies." I protested to them in blood aura. The wines receded and the blood hunger from my crew was quelled due to the blood aura effect. A gift granted to me by my father, the king. It was a necessary tactic all royals had, but that I hardly used, seeing that I was mostly engulfed in my studies. My eyes tracked the movement of the female werewolf. She was clearly running from the devastation that had claimed her village. But how had she survived? This particular Wendigo was no ordinary beast. It seemed to crave werewolf blood with a hunger that mirrored my own bloodlust. The twisted desires lurking in its dark thoughts were disturbingly familiar to me. The hunger it ate at us both. Though it appeared as a grotesque, undead deer, it retained enough humanity for me to catch glimpses of its thoughts. Deranged, ravenous thoughts that spoke of an insatiable hunger. One word dominated its mind: want. Yet already the creature was far enough away that I could not sense his thoughts. The blood aura needed close proximity to work its magic. As I said, I saw her wolf form before I saw her human form. She had fully shifted by the time I saw her. a magnificent creature with thick, luxurious fur, a blend of brown, black, and silver that could only have come from surviving the harshest of climates. The wolves back home were gray or black. She was a sight to behold, her colors allowing her to blend seamlessly with both the night and the day. She was strong and graceful. I wondered if she was considered an alpha. She would have to have royal werewolf blood for that, though. For months I tracked her, driven by a curiosity that I could not fully explain. How had she escaped a monster that had killed an entire werewolf village? The Wendigo would return periodically, always managing to find her despite her attempts to remain hidden. How he tracked her, I had no idea. Whenever it came close, my crew would intervene attempting to capture it, but we always ended up just chasing it off. I was no longer interested in capturing the Wendigo, but I did not tell my crew that. "She is my lure," I said to them as we followed her relentlessly, and their mumbles and complaints were heavy on my ears. My crew set many traps surrounding the werewolf, and she appeared to understand that we were not there to hurt her. Yet she didn't trust us completely, which was wise. The Wendigo seemed to have no interest in our undead flesh. It simply wanted to avoid us. I still don't know why I got involved, but I didn't introduce myself to her until weeks later. Looking back, I can only assume that even then I was in love with her, but I knew our love would put her in even bigger danger. A royal vampire like me with a werewolf was taboo. It was a death sentence for us both. Regardless, night after night, I pursued her trail. My small coven was starting to get restless again. The bloodlust in their eyes started to appear more often. I had to do something about them before chaos erupted. I too was becoming weak, having not fed in weeks. I could not keep up the blood aura forever. Animal blood did nothing for us, though we still tried. "Dig a trap, fill it with sharpened stakes," I said. "Fill the bottom with dried brush and kindling. We will chase it and trap it inside, then we will burn it alive," I finally said.
What about your father? Wouldn't he want it alive?
Clive asked, looking gaunt. "We are getting nowhere with it. If it is subdued enough being staked, which I suspect it would be being somewhat undead, then we can return it to father. If not, we will have to burn it," I answered coldly. "Then we can drink from the werewolf." I added to give them pep in their step. They had no idea the trap was for them. I was never a cold vampire. I actually hated how my father ran his kingdom. Although I was starting to think the apple did not fall far from the tree. Anything for her safety, I told myself. Anything. My blood was cold and dead, but this wolf, something about her made me feel things I had never experienced. She made me feel alive. I was going to protect that. On a moonless night, the Wendigo returned looking for her. We chased it, and just as I suspected, it leapt over the trap we had set for it, and it vanished into the night. Now was my chance. I summoned the blood aura around me, large and like a shield. I was going to use the last of my aura power to push them in. My crew, angry and hungry, having used their last energy reserves chasing the Wendigo, started to go for the werewolf we had followed. I recognized the hunger in their eyes, and I knew it was now or never. Just then the werewolf appeared on the other side of the trap. The beautiful woman I now know as Ayana was standing in human form. naked and wild, full of vigor and life staring at us. If she were a vampiress, she couldn't be more seductive. My aura dropped. My crew, who were weaker vampires than I, moved towards her, seduced by the promise of blood and sex, falling to their death instantly and simultaneously like a bunch of mindless lemmings falling off a cliff. For a moment, she simply stared at me, her long black hair flowing in the breeze. Shock and something like respect filled her facial expression. I had not followed suit with the rest of the vampires to my death. Then she shifted and ran off again. Quickly, I lit the vampire bodies on fire and let the fire roar, knowing eventually, in the earth pit, the fire would eventually put itself out. Then I went after her. The chase had begun. She evaded me each day while the sun was up and I was forced to rest. But then I would hunt her down again by nightfall. The sun was stronger on this land. My elixirs barely did anything. She also avoided most native colonies and villages. She was smart. She did not want to lure the Wendigo or myself towards them. My father had sent me to explore this new world and its creatures, but my interest had shifted from mere exploration to desire. I wanted to know more about her. I admit having seen her human form drove me further into infatuation. Wolves were nothing new to us, but she might as well have been an entirely new creature to me. It took many nights before I finally managed to speak to her. Ayana radiated a magic that I had never encountered in any other wolf. She knew I was watching her. She was a werewolf after all. She could sense my presence, sense that I meant her no harm, but kept on running until one fateful night. Even though the hunger was gnawing on me, when I spied her figure in the distance, the hunger quelled. I ran, swiftly and supernaturally. I was going to catch her if it was the last thing I'd do. She saw me and lunged out of the way, shifting mid-jump into her wolf form. I chased her through the desert, sometimes barely catching her but missing. She jumped a stream, then shifted into her mature woman body that drove me crazy. She looked back at me defiantly. She said something out loud in her language. The emotions were of defiance. Perhaps she confused me for a demon and thought I couldn't cross running water. Oh, the smirk I had on my face. I can already feel her in my arms before I jumped. I landed right in front of her, her smile fading as I wrapped my arms around her warm body. I went straight for the kiss. Her lips were warm and luscious, and at first, inviting, then smack. Her slap was so hard it made my ears ring. I sat on the floor watching her as she ran off again. What was wrong with me, I wondered. Why was I acting like such a brute? "I'm sorry," I yelled out after her. I found her again the second night. My spirit was down and I felt awful. I felt as if I had been rejected, and yet here I was, still pursuing her. Perhaps that's why she didn't flee when we met again. Werewolves were experts on body language and assessing intentions. She knew I was very near. She sat by her fire, singing softly as she cleansed herself with herbs, masking her scent from both predators and prey alike. She looked around, waiting for me to make my move, but I hesitated. I didn't know if she would run again. I didn't blame her. I managed to walk out of the shadows and make eye contact with her. But I could not speak. I didn't even know her language. What would I say? I felt nervous and jittery, something I'd never known. Now, of all times, I had suddenly grown shy. I had never felt shy before. Antisocial, yes. Shy, no. She nodded in reverence to me. I too nodded. My eyes must have been shining bright red from the fire, but hers were illuminated by a soft ocean blue. I sat down in front of her, keeping the fire between us. For a second, suspicion aroused in me. I was hoping she wouldn't lure me into the fire like the others. She must have smelled my emotions because she let out a charming loud laugh that ended in a soft giggle. God, she was amazing. Everything about her just drove me crazy. She was a medicine woman from what I could tell, wise in ways I could only begin to understand. In her hand, she held a type of rattling snake. This type of snake was unfamiliar to me. Its long fangs were out, but she held onto it firmly so its bite would be restrained. She showed it to me, then gestured to me with her lips. She was communicating me. Charming, yes, I am the snake, I get that. Then quickly she allowed the viper to bite her, allowing the poison into her veins. I jumped up. "What are you doing?" I asked her in my native tongue. She pulled the snake off, then smiled up at me as she opened her eyes. She was okay. Well, I had learned about werewolf healing abilities, but why would she actively do that? Did she want me to bite her? I couldn't. She then tore off the fangs of the viper and threw them into the fire. It was defanged. I nodded no. I could not be defanged. I was not going to do that. That would be suicide. Then she did something else that completely shocked me. She consumed the viper raw. I watched her eat with intrigue. Then, in an abalone shell, she spit out some of the chewed-up snake and mixed dirt, herbs, and her own blood into it. The moment I saw her bite into her own wrist and draw up the blood she needed drove me into a frenzy. That is, until I looked up and she made eye contact with me. The hunger went away instantly. I kept my composure, knowing she was testing me. She laid the concoction by the fire. I was starting to think she was a bit loony from all the trauma she encountered with this Wendigo. I am a man of science, and am well aware that there is medicine in plants and poisonous venom. But how she used it was different from what I am used to. Either she knew something I didn't, or she was slowing losing it. Either way, I was determined to help her. She motioned for me to move or get away as she finished the ritual she was doing. I went back into the shadows to watch her again from afar. That night she had covered herself in mud mixed with herbs. She used the tincture of snake flesh and herbs as a type of perfume. She rubbed on underarms between her thighs and ankles. Then her wolf dug a hole in the ground to sleep, curling up inside. She draped her leather dress and shawl over the hole, concealing herself completely. If I hadn't seen her enter, I would never have known she was there. I was honored. She trusted me. She knew I watched where she lay and still turned her back to me. This was the message that she had communicated to me. The vampires in Romania also buried themselves in the earth. It gave us renewed strength and great healing after a type of hibernation. But Romania was our homeland. This dirt held no magic for us. Yet she did not hibernate. My blood aura, as weak as it was becoming with my hunger, still picked up on her thoughts being this close to her. She was kind, curious, and ready to talk. I realized then that we were alike in some ways. I watched her sleep. I remember at one time throughout the night trying to get near her sacred mound, but it was as if a giant invisible bubble of power surrounded her, so I went back to the shadows. Later, she confessed that she had been communing with the earth around her. praying for the butterfly maiden to cover her and protect her. In this aspect, vampires and werewolves were different. We had no gods, spirits, or ancestors to protect us. Our kind lived for so long that we were our own ancestors. But there were rumors that once there were gods of sorts, a type of bat shifter. This is why I presumed my father had sent me here, to capture a demi-god. And yet I had not seen one. I desired her, not her blood, but her. But I was not her fated mate. I had learned about fated mates from the werewolves back home. Vampires did not have these sorts of mates. Through the blood aura, I read her mind as she laid communing with the earth. Her memories eventually told me that the Wendigo was her fated mate, and that she had rejected him. That is why he had attacked her village, because of his anger. And now she was destined to run from him forever. She ran south into warmer weather, keeping him weak as he was a type of frost giant. Her thoughts, when I touched them, were full of despair. She knew he would never stop chasing her. He needed her to complete himself, to lift the curse that had twisted him into a monster. He was a rogue, cursed and cast out, but she was not. Even with her clan dead, she had never been cursed like he was. He didn't love her. He only loved what she could do for him. He wanted to mark her as his, to claim her power and free himself from his fate. Her blood memories cried out for help. In that silent communication, I relayed my promise to help her. Looking back, it was a type of alliance. Our minds joined, and the following night I found that Ayana had not run away. I found that I could understand the meaning behind her language, if not the words themselves. And she could understand mine. Ayana shifted in front of my eyes, and I averted my gaze out of respect. She reached for her clothes that she had stashed behind a rock, and I waited patiently as she put them on. I was tired, weak from having gone without blood for several months, but not 1 inch of me wanted to drink from her. I think she realized this. She extended her hand to me with a soft smile. In it were herbs, a mixture of dried flowers and crushed leaves. I had seen her collecting them throughout her journey, but I hadn't realized until that moment that they were for me. Ayana rubbed them into my skin using red clay soil as a base. It was an arduous feat to keep from reaching out to her and make love to her the way I wanted. Her hands were warm as she rubbed the concoction all over me. I was helpless to move lest I go full brute again. I felt the soil suck into my pores as if I were a sponge, something I had never seen in all my years. These herbs, when covered with mud, protected me from the sun's rays. It was its own sort of vampire sunscreen, and the oils that were absorbed seemed to circulate its protective compounds to the rest of my body. She had given me a gift to see the sun. I had my sun-shielding elixirs I had made in the laboratory, yes, but they were not that strong. In this sun, they merely kept me from exploding. I never got to enjoy the sun like this after this moment. The red earth also gave me a type of flush to my skin I've never had, a tan, so to speak. No one had ever done anything like that for me. Nobody had ever treated me so kindly or rubbed my body with fragrances while humming a sacred song under the moonlight. No one had ever given anything to me I had not asked for. As a prince, I was used to getting everything I wanted. And yet, I never knew I wanted this or needed this. The dreamlike moment between us didn't last long, though. Ayana was leaning in, I felt her warm, sweet breath over mine, but before we could make contact and kiss, we felt the evil Wendigo's presence once again. The wind howled like a mourning mother across the barren desert, whipping up spirals of dust beneath a copper moon. The air shimmered with heat, though the night had already fallen. Simmers of heat waves were still emanating from the ground, a reminder of how hot the desert sun is. Ayana stood ahead of me, poised and ready, already having shifted to her wolf form, her fur glinting silver and brown beneath the moonlight. She looked like something carved from the spirit world itself, alive, defiant, radiant with power. I envied her heartbeat. Then the Wendigo stepped out of the shadows. It moved with the sound of cracking ice, tall and lean, its pale limbs gleaming white like carved bones. Frost clung to its antlers, defying the desert's heat. Its eyes, black hollows, locked onto Ayana with the hunger of a god who had forgotten mercy. I could barely stand. My voice came out as a rasp. I can't. I'm not strong enough. Ayana turned to me, eyes blazing a golden blue.
Then, take it,
she said, thrusting out her wrist. I stared at her, horrified. Ayana, I cannot.
Do it.
She roared, her voice echoing across the dunes.
You'll need my strength before he kills us both.
The Wendigo's growl split the silence, closer now. I hesitated only a second longer before I gave in. My fangs pierced her skin and her blood hit my tongue like fire. The world exploded. Her heartbeat thundered in my skull, her power searing through my veins. I heard the Wendigo let out a loud shriek of anger as it realized what we were doing. I gasped as the desert shifted around me. Colors deepened, sounds sharpened. The strength of the wolf poured into me, wild and untamed. My dead heart began to pound with hers. For the first time in decades, I felt alive. The Wendigo lunged. I met its charge with blinding speed, sand erupting beneath my boots. Its claws struck the ground where I'd been a heartbeat ago. I reappeared behind it, slamming my fist into its ribs. The impact cracked like thunder. The beast screamed, a sound so sharp it rattled the bones of the earth. Ayana's howl rose behind me. She crashed into the Wendigo's flank, tearing through sinew and tendon. The monster swung, hurling her aside. I caught her mid-fall, her blood still burning in me like liquid lightning. Stay down, I warned, my voice unrecognizable. Half beast, half man. She smirked, blood on her lips.
You couldn't stop me if you tried.
The Wendigo charged again, antlers glinting like daggers. I grabbed one in both hands. The shock of impact rattled my bones, but I held fast. Ayana leapt again, her claws sinking into its shoulder, giving me the opening I needed. With a roar that tore my throat raw, I twisted. Bones splintered, blood sprayed hot and dark. The Wendigo shrieked as I ripped its antlers from its skull, tearing flesh and sinew in a grotesque burst of violence. The creature staggered back, its screams echoing off the canyon walls. Frost spread across its skin again, the cold reclaiming it. It turned north, limping, bleeding, retreating toward the frozen tundra it had crawled from. The desert fell silent. I stood panting, the broken antlers still clutched in my hands, dripping with black and green ichor. The power in me pulsed, wild and intoxicating. I could still taste her blood, still feel it thrumming through my body. Ayana limped toward me, shifting back into her human form, her hair tangled with sand and moonlight.
You tore them off.
She whispered, voice soft, full of awe and disbelief. I dropped the antlers to the sand. He'll live, unfortunately, I said quietly. But he'll remember me. She stepped closer, pressing a hand to my chest where her heart still echoed through me.
Then let him remember,
she murmured. Lightning flickered far off on the horizon, faint, distant, like the gods watching in silence. The Wendigo was gone. But as the desert wind cooled and the blood dried on my hands, I knew this wasn't the end. But I had at least bide us some time. Although we were not mates by her standpoint, I vowed to be by her side, living as one. We made this sacred covenant that very night. Before I claimed her, I severed the connection from my blood aura as simple as any command. I hoped he would believe that I was dead like the rest of the coven, extinguished by the sun or some other misfortune like the Wendigo, rather than imagine that I had fallen for a wolf. Vampires don't share the same mind-linking abilities as wolves, but we do have something more sinister, a blood bond. My father, being my maker, could sense whether I was alive or not. It was only after I met Aiyana and locked eyes with her as she shared with me the secrets I needed to dampen my vampire nature, that I realized with distance and her medicine it was possible to disconnect from him forever. The medicine she gave me did more than ease my hunger. It tamed the very essence of my darkness. Drinking from her was the last blood I had tasted in many, many years. With time, she prepared me with silver charms and protection symbols, strengthening my resistance to the sun's harsh rays and dulling my relentless thirst for blood. Silver had once been my greatest fear, but now, as I watch the sun rise for the first time in centuries, I welcome Silver's cold embrace like a knight donning his armor. For a while, the Wendigo vanished from our lives, allowing us to settle in what is now New Mexico. Apparently, tearing off its horns injured it more than I realized it would. We hoped that it would never return. I learned Ayana's language and she learned mine, even though I wasn't completely necessary. We finally returned to village life and found refuge on the outskirts of a skin shifter tribe, a place where I kept the rogues and new colonizers at bay in exchange for their alliance. I was tolerated, if not welcomed, but Aiyana, she became one of them. Her skills as a medicine woman earned their respect, and she was accepted into their fold. Years passed, and it wasn't long before Ayana conceived, a miracle in its own right. Her medicine was so potent that it had nearly turned me human again. To create life instead of taking it felt like a gift, a redemption I didn't think I deserved. But the tribe didn't see it as a blessing. They turned on us, forced us to leave the place we had come to call home. We harbored no ill will toward them, though. They were being smart. We all knew if they harbored us, their tribe would be like a beacon for all sorts of supernatural hunters. A werewolf was something not in their treaty with us. So we left peacefully and they gave us their blessing. We moved further south of New Mexico, into current-day Mexico. During Ayana's 3rd month of pregnancy, the Wendigo found us again, even in the desert bordering current-day New Mexico. He did not dare fight us physically, but used a sort of bad magic on Aiyana. He forced her to wake up one night and caused the immature birth of our child. The werewolf inside her clawed its way out of her, turning her insides to the outside while I sat helpless to help her. Only her werewolf powers of rejuvenation helped her stay alive. I was a weakened form of vampire, so I had no blood aura to protect the child. No magic, no strength to even fight the enemy. The night sky grew dark and it started to rain. Ayana laid, clutching her abdomen and our dead child with her free hand. She was too young to survive outside the womb. Something inside me died. The newfound peace I had found transformed, and I could feel my old friend, the bloodlust peeking its ugly head at me from the shadows. I was ready to go after the Wendigo once and for all.
No, don't leave me,
said Ayana, panting in pain. I can't just let him get away with this, I said, feeling my blood run cold.
You aren't. You can't.
She managed to say.
You are more human than vampire. You will be killed.
She said.
Please.
She said, pleading with me. I agreed to stay with her, but this time, if he returned, I would be ready. Ayana touched my cheek, soothing me. That monster may have won this battle, but on my honor, one day I will take it down, I said. We buried our child in the red earth of New Mexico near the cliffs we used to live by. Ayana had said there were spirits on the mountain that would look over her secret grave. The grief was heavy in our hearts, but we had to keep moving. Time stood on end. Hundreds of years passed without a peep from the monster. Then another miracle came. Ayana was pregnant again. This time we knew where we had to go, the Shadowlands. We settled in rogue territory where I had built an empire of ghouls fortified by the herb magic Ayana had taught me and my own knowledge of alchemy. I procured a home and another laboratory. I was determined to be ready for the Wendigo if he ever returned. We were eventually accepted into the rogue nation as allies to the Owl, and in exchange for vampire sunscreen, the rogue vampire colony in the city of what is now called San Diego. Magdalena was born via C-section, delivered by my own hands, and given the name Twinkling Star by her mother. And now, as I looked down at my daughter lying on the table, subdued, I realized just how much she looked like her mother. Her hair was in braids from the powwow, and she wore a type of native skirt Ayana also liked to wear. A sting of pain shot through me as I remembered that her mother had been kidnapped and currently in Wendigo's grip. But I had to remain calm. We were on the verge of creating a concoction that would keep Magdalena from shifting for the rest of her life, to make her practically human when that werewolf, her mate, ruined everything. I wasn't about to let another monster take another one of my daughters away. I had to alter my plan until I could test the concoction. My ghouls told me he was currently on his way to claim her. I had to move fast. With a trembling hand, I pulled down the bandana I had used to blind my now adult daughter. If the Wendigo had found her once, he could find her again. I had to cover her eyes to prevent her from revealing the location of my lair. She looked at me with fear in her eyes, and I gently brushed my fingers over her forehead. My ghouls once again alerted me to the wolf's approach. I knew her mate was close. He was so fast. Through my blood connection with the ghouls, I saw his massive black wolf barreling toward us. That fool is going to lead the demon straight back to us, I thought, but when I saw the fear in Magdalena's eyes, I pushed aside my anger and sighed. If his presence could calm her, then so be it. The Wendigo already had what he wanted.
Dad, what are you doing?
Magdalena's voice broke through my thoughts, desperate for answers.
Don't you dare hurt Luce.
I remained silent. She would know everything in a few moments. I only had a few minutes left to restore her lost memories of Ayana and me before her mate arrived. As I placed my hand over her forehead, she closed her eyes. Her breathing slowed, and I could see the rapid movement of her eyes as she fell into a deep, dreamlike state. "Please don't worry, I am going to help you," I said. The memories poured out like water from a dam, flooding her mind. Her birth, her mother feeding her for the first time, her first birthday. I watched as she remembered the dress Aiyana had made for her. A beautiful regalia of deer leather with jingle tassels crafted with love and care. She had been as white as a lily with hair black as night, her smile contagious like her mother's. I unraveled all the lost memories right up to our last meeting. She saw the night of her prom when I brought her home. Her mother's embrace, the tears they shared. I had hated concealing that memory, but I had suspected the Wendigo's return. I had no choice but to keep us hidden for her protection. Wendigos weren't psychic, but this one had been some kind of shaman. He had powers unknown to me. Ayana had told me who he was, a cast-out shaman from a northern tribe banished for his dark magic and cannibalism. He had the power to see through the eyes of animals or even unprotected humans, and he had used that dark magic to find us. As I opened her mind to all these memories, I shared a few of my own. She knew about me, her mother, her people, and the monster that had torn our lives apart. I even bestowed upon her the secrets of my laboratory and experiments. All my knowledge. She knew her mother had been taken by the Wendigo that morning, aided by wolves who had betrayed their own kind. I could hear her wolf howling in the depths of her mind as I passed this knowledge to her through our sacred blood connection. It only took a few minutes, but a lifetime of memories had been restored, like a torrent of data flooding into her consciousness. She was going to need all this information, but it was going to take time to process it all. Suddenly, the door to the brick cellar was kicked open and shattered. Andy, her mate, stood before us, unapologetically naked, staring at me with fury in his eyes.
"Take your hands off her,"
he shouted, his voice filled with raw power. There was something different about him this time. My ghouls were right. He was no longer a rogue. But there was something else. He had been empowered by something dangerous. He lunged at me, slamming me against the wall. Without Ayana's herbs and all the silver I now forced myself to wear, I would have overpowered him, but he was also so much stronger than before. I had seen his wolf when he followed her here the first time. He wasn't as impressive then. My ghouls were ready to intervene, but I blood-linked them to stay back. Then a soft voice cut through the tension.
Andy, don't.
Magdalena called out. I sent another command to my ghouls to untie her. She reached out, her small hand resting on Andy's bloodied back. He flinched, lost in thought, but her touch brought him back. After a few moments, he released me. I ordered my ghouls to bring him clothes, and he quickly dressed, covering himself in one of my trousers. He sat beside Magdalena, embracing her. I sent my ghouls away, prepared to leave them alone to talk, but Magdalena surprised me.
Dad,
She called, stopping me in my tracks.
where are you going?
My eyes shifted to her gaze in surprise. My daughter wanted me, called for me. I thought she would hate me for scaring her and making her think I kidnapped her. Had my memories begun to reveal the depth of my love for her? Twinkling star, I said while embracing her. My daughter was back,
We have to find Mom now.
she said urgently. She was right. I turned and addressed everyone in the room. Meet me in the cellar in 10 minutes. And I mean everyone. I gestured toward Andy, knowing he would call for his shifter friends. He nodded. We were going to need all the help we could get. As I left the room, I slid off my silver jewelry, letting the pieces clank discordantly onto the stone floor. It was time. The vampire was coming back. From the grave.